Thanks everyone for coming back for another segment of Michigan Conservative Roundtable. My name's TJ, going solo again. And for starters, I'd just like to acknowledge some of our subscribers out there. Our subscribers in Washington, Texas, and from the great land down under, Australia. I welcome you. Thanks for subscribing. And in the month of November, I'm going to try and do some tribute videos, military tribute videos. I have some military topics I'd like to touch on, and for those who aren't aware or don't know what's coming up on the calendar, but the 11th of November is Veterans Day. Originally used to be Armistice Day, the ending of World War I. The ending of World War I, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month is how I was always taught. So with Veterans Day on the horizon, I thought I'd do some military tribute videos here in the near future. The title of this segment is Deeper Than a Holler. And you may wonder, what is a holler? Well, it's a Southern Appalachian speech term. Holler is a dialect for hollows, which describes valleys among mountains, and I guess a lot of people down south use it. And if you're familiar with a country music song by Randy Travis, he has a song, My Love is Deeper Than a Holler, and in it he references that his love for his woman, just how deep it is. Nothing could be deeper than a holler. And I'd like to take deeper than a holler and apply that to the deep state. Deep state definition: an alleged secret network of especially non-elected government officials, and it could include even some private entities. And presidents, Republican, Democrat, they come and they go, but the bureaucracy remains. You got different administration positions. It's almost a necessary evil. For instance, when President Trump came into office, you had a boatload of Obama holdovers. It's done as so that you have a continuity in governing, but ultimately you have competing administrations trying to submarine each other is really what you end up getting. And it's involved into a deep state, and it's deeper than a holler, I gotta tell you. Well, let's just look at some of the deep state entities. FBI, and the one that's most commonly associated with the FBI is the holier-than-thou, leaker of leaks, leaker extraordinaire, James Comey. CIA, John Brennan, a communist supporter. He's currently suspected of being the one that planted the most recent whistleblower of this Ukrainian thing. They think this whistleblower was a plant by John Brennan. DOJ, you always think of Rod Rosenstein, the guy who toyed with the idea of wearing a wire so that he could record President Trump in hopes of trying to get something on him. And speaking of the DOJ, you have a woman by the name of Sally Yates that President Trump fired. She was an Obama holdover who out and out chose to disobey President Trump, and President Trump said, "You got to go." State Department, the one that kind of came to my mind was that Ukrainian ambassador, Maria Yovanovitch. And she was an Obama appointee ambassador to Ukraine, and she's nose deep in this Ukrainian scandal nonsense. And as President Trump was trying to get to the bottom of it, she was working against him. She got fired by President Trump. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, who just recently in an interview with Don Lemon praised efforts of deep state actors in an effort to keep the out of control President Trump in line. Think of the IRS. Lois Lerner, who targeted conservative groups, withholding tax-free status to some charitable groups, and audited other groups in an effort to undermine their activity. The EPA, just as a whole, Environmental Protection Agency, that whole cabal, telling landowners what they can and can't do with their land. You have the Department of Energy, and I will always remember Mark Levin on radio speaking with an employee from the Department of Energy. And as Mark Levin was speaking to this guy from Department of Energy, he kept saying, "So you work for the Department of Energy that produces no energy." And this is just some examples. You got the Department of Education, who do they really even educate anyone? And so there you have some examples of the deep state. And I would ask rhetorically, what are the achievements of these deep state stars? In general, they're basically pushing us into a state of civil war. This is a topic that's been repeatedly discussed by Mac and I, and actually other organizations, opinions of different articles and everything. The distribution of the Steele dossier, the way it even came into existence, the way it's being pandered. Think about the way they're coming after us through their attacks on President Trump. These deep state stars, in their infinite wisdom and condescension, feel that they know better than us, the voters. Just recently, I bought a book by Andrew C. McCarthy, and the name of the book is Ball of Collusion. And I saw Andrew McCarthy in an interview, and it might have been on Hannity, but I don't recall what show it was on. But in this interview, Andrew McCarthy, he confessed to initially doubting the merits of the accusations of how this deep state was so out to get President Trump. Part of the reason was Andrew McCarthy himself was a district attorney, and he could not believe the very organization that he was a member of, Department of Justice, along with the FBI, that they were so intricately involved in the submarining of Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. But eventually, even Andrew McCarthy came to the conclusion, holy cow, there's something to this. And he wrote his book, and in it he meticulously lists their activities, the very fact of their hypocrisy in that they're accusing President Trump of virtually everything they themselves have done. He has it listed in his book, and it's a very interesting read, and I strongly encourage reading Ball of Collusion by Andrew McCarthy. just recently, this past week, another book has come out, and I have yet to purchase it, so I haven't read a lick of it. Just I read a couple reviews on it, and I heard what Rush Limbaugh said about it. The guy's name was Lee Smith, and the name of the book, The Plot Against the President. And this book's a little bit different. From what I've read, it approaches the attempted coup, we'll call it the attempted coup of the deep state, through the eyes of Devin Nunes. And it is Lee Smith who credits Devin Nunes for the initial discovery of, holy cow, this deep state is out for blood. Now, we all knew that they were out to get Trump. We were thinking in terms of smearing. They were going to smear him, tar and feather him, anything they could to shame him out of office. But it was Devin Nunes who actually discovered that they were just out and out looking to take President Trump out. I remember in the early days of President Trump's administration, seeing in the news how Devin Nunes went running to the White House over something he had discovered. And I even mentioned it in one of our previous videos that I theorized that perhaps Devin Nunes was one of the first ones to have a feeling, an inclination of something going down. Well, according to Lee Smith, he was the first one to realize what exactly the deep state was trying to do. When I get a chance, I'm going to get this book by Lee Smith, and it's getting good reviews, so you guys might want to consider getting that and reading up on Devin Nunes' part in all of this. There is a theory that the Rhino Republicans, through John McCain, who has passed, conspired with the Dems, and that would kind of explain why some of the Republicans in D.C., the Republican establishment in D.C., kind of sat on their hands, letting this play out, letting what the Democrats were doing play out. And then there's a theory as to that. There could be something to that. And so, therein lies the dangers of the never-Trumpers. That just fuels my disdain and contempt for those. And so, there you have it, the deep state. And the deep state is deeper than a holler. And I'll spare you any further rambling and end with, keep your powder dry. And as we always say here at the Michigan Conservative Roundtable, be safe, watch your six, and to the deep state, don't tread on me.